information. So our kind of journalism only really appeals to 60% of our readers are Egyptian, 40% are non-Egyptian. But the people who read are certain. Someone goes to actually read like a 6 to 8 page paper, 4,000, 5,000 words on a certain topic. It's more, it caters to a certain type of people who actually want to really know about an issue, dig deep into it, and find out about it. Which actually, unfortunately, is actually they're on the decrease. People usually now they want quick, fast information. At least from my observation, at least age group, let's say 18 to 24. Not really into, at least here in Egypt, they're not so much into reading about it. I think that a lot of people are actually turning online now more than into print journalism, especially our type of newspapers. Only 6% of Egyptians have access to the internet, but these 6% are like 5 million people. They're in a position to affect change, and I think even though the internet, we have bloggers that are arrested and there's a lot of content, it's still a lot freer. I won't say that we actually have censorship because we're registered as foreign, even though we're actually Egyptian. But there is, of course, a lot of censorship still in Egypt. Press freedoms are lifted and then they're put back. 2 years ago, Egypt was added to the Reporters Without Borders, the blacklist of countries considered the enemies of the internet. But at the same time, I still think press, like print media, there's a lot more harsher on. We have the editor's restriction, which got sentenced last year. In 2007, there was a huge crackdown on freedom of speech. Journalists were detained, prosecuted, harassed, and independent media suffers from a lot of legal obstacles. Columnist President Heba, who passed away this year, he actually said that the government owns the tap and they can open it and close it whenever they deem appropriate, which is what I think is happening a lot now, that suddenly you find that we have a lot of freedom and then suddenly it's taken back depending on the context of what's happening in the country. So I think the internet is free-ish, if I can say that, it's freer. I think that written media will suffer because of the increased importance of electronic media, just as audiovisual media, like TV, affected print media. But not so much because of laws, because no matter how useful they are and how they're still not really journalists. There's a lot of like rumors, because you can't really verify, it's not really journalism. But it offers a different side, like it opens people's eyes different. I believe that the magazines like where I work don't really have the same appeal they used to, but I don't think print media is going to die out anytime soon, even though it's facing challenging competition. And we have high illiteracy rate in Egypt, but it's the people who read. And I think there's one thing online, there's one thing affecting change. So basically, I think people are shifting more to internet, they're shifting more to information, but there's always going to be a place for print media, even if it's monthly, you have to wait to find out what's happening.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the second question, and it is, what are the intercultural implications for independent media, such as blogging, YouTube, internet radio, Facebook, things like this? And could we have you, Mr. Welch, answer the question first, so that way everyone gets a chance to be the first person to answer?
A chance to be first. It's their responsibility, okay.
It's not the
well, I think a lot of the things Dr. Leach mentioned at the beginning in terms of the opportunity to really build empathy is very significant. I think, the opportunity for individuals to access directly rather than mitigated through their media institutions or their political, governments, people and the journalism of other cultures is very significant for that purpose alone. And I think he outlined very well the benefits of that to preventing conflict from emerging. I think there's also a trend that we're seeing that is to widen our sense of identity groups. And this is in many ways related, meaning by identity group I mean sort of how do we define ourselves? If you look at, over the broad sort of history, last 1,000 years or so ago, I mean, we see that our identity groups are ever expanding. I mean, if you look at Europe today, and the notion of someone in Paris defining themselves as a European as opposed to a Frenchman, 60 years ago was outrageous. To consider there being some sort of common identification with a German would have been very, very hard for them to conceive of even. But today, there's a stronger sense of European identity. And that doesn't, and I think that trait alone is significant, but it's not completely consistent, meaning that I think there are many people who, because of this increasing kind of identification with your broader group identity, there's a feeling of threat to your, if you will, smaller group identity. Meaning, so if I am becoming, let's say, if I feel I'm a global citizen, does that threaten my American identity? And for many people, there is a sense of threat that comes with that. So, and I think that's a large part of why we see movements like the neoconservative movement, is that there's a feeling that the core identity that I represent is being threatened by the influx of all of these other values and ideas. I think you see that in every culture. I think across Europe, we have a real resurgence of nationalism now. And I think that's in large part a result of this increasing sort of onslaught of information from other cultures. So I think that the access to all of these other various foreign media, it pulls us in both directions. I think on the one hand, it does enable us to kind of reach that common ground, to feel that sense of common community that enables us to expand our sense of identity group. But it also feels threatening to many of us. And I think it's important that we are aware of both of those and don't just simply put it in one or the other category. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. El-Katatney? Okay, the question is, what are the intercultural implications for independent media, such as blogging, internet, radio, and Facebook?
I don't know about all of you, but as soon as the internet came on, we all often chat about all these little weird, I can't even remember any, we used to go around people, age, sex, location. It was something extremely new. I believe that internet blogs, all these new communities, they serve as an incredible opportunity.
Yes, I don't actually have a lot to add to this because I see the potential for building empathy, cross-cultural empathy, and I mean, in my experience, that does actually happen. I follow now and then a lot of Saudi blogs, Saudi chat rooms. It followed on from trips to Saudi Arabia, but it really is not an extension of travel, and it's an extension of knowing people personally. But once you're actually reading about the debates in a particular society, and it shatters cultural cliches, and you stop having this implicit idea of other people.
Thank you very much. Okay, our third question is directed to you first, Ms. El-Katatney, and it is, what are the social and political implications for independent media in Egypt?
This is the question I have to look. Okay, independent media in Egypt isn't really, it's not brand new, but it's not exactly old. It's new. We have Bahram, Akhbar, this is it, we have nothing else now. Jazeera, when it began, it was kind of a revolution, if I can say it easier, because it made us aware of the disparity in media coverage. And our president actually went, when he went like 6 years ago, he was actually enough to said like all this trouble from a matchbox, because compared to everything over here, it was extremely small. But in Jazeera and its followers, they constituted what many saw as the most dynamic force of political change in the Middle East, and the government is no longer able to dictate how the public can perceive events, or actually if they see the events at all. So a lot of times there were things that happened and we didn't even know that they happened. So the internet and the blogging phenomenon, which boomed in Egypt in 2004-2005, was one of the most incredible things to actually witness. If you were here, if you'd seen like when protests began, and actual coverage of them was amazing. You could see on the spot things that were happening. A critique of the internet is that it causes people to focus on global communication, but in Egypt's case, I think it actually increased local involvement and fostered a sense of community. Being connected helped Egyptians become civically involved. 60% of Egypt's